Good morning. It's Monday, April the 7th, 2025. And here in my old Kentucky home, it is very cloudy. It's cold. Someone said it was redwood? No, redbud. Redbud winter because it was about 40 degrees, 40 something degrees this morning. So it's a little cool. The grass is so wet from all the rain we've had, but it'll be okay. So today, the good news is this morning I got our taxes together and got them delivered to the accountant to work them up. My husband, I have to tell you this story. You know, he's pretty sneaky, I would say. When we were young and so in love, we would sit at the kitchen table with our tax information and he would show me how to get it together. And we would take like 2 sheets of paper and put one for expenses and one for income. And we would write down all the income we had on one, all the expenses. And then after we had gone through all this mess of papers, and I can't say that it was a very joyful time because we did have some unkind words at times, like, why did you spend this? Or what did you buy with this? Or blah, blah. Nothing too serious, but just the usual. So what I didn't realize at the time, because remember I was young, he was training me to get the taxes together every year as he kind of eased out of the situation. But I didn't realize that because, see, I was blinded. I just thought whatever he did was the greatest thing ever. So after a few years, he started letting me do them by myself. And I tell you, I would just think I would almost rather go to the dentist, but I'm not sure. That would be a really hard decision if I had to choose between the two. But now, guess who gets to do them all by herself? So this morning I said to him, I'm getting the taxes ready to take to the accountant this morning. And he said, I appreciate it. And I said, I bet you do. And then he went riding around with his brother. But now he hadn't been out of the house since all this rain, so he deserves a good time out to ride around. So I kind of keep things a little bit situated during the year to where I'm just not mad by the time I get them finished, because I have been mad sometimes whenever I got them done. So I got them together. Didn't take me hardly any time because I'd already a few weeks ago gone through and kind of sorted some papers out. So I got them together. Thankful to announce to the world that my taxes are now in the hands of the CPA. So they're out of my hands. And I'm so thankful. That is just a big burden released off of me. So this is going to be a good day. It has to be. Just because I've waited till, I wait till the last minute. I had a friend one time said, I don't pay a bill up until the day it's due because she said, if I died, I might have wanted to spend that money that was for that bill. So she said, I wait till just it's due. But I don't do that. I usually pay a bill as soon as I get it. But anyway, that's the taxes for 2024. Now, I have just thought about, the story of the adoption of my daughter. And I'm so afraid I will leave out something important. But if you watch Old Me Living Better, which is old Mike, he's 80 or 81. He started a YouTube channel, I think, just maybe a year or so ago. He's really great. You need to listen to him if you haven't. But yesterday I noticed that he had a video on there of being adopted, that he was adopted, and he had met his birth mother and years later, and the story that was just so interesting, and you might be interested in watching that. Old Me Doing Better, I think is the name of it. And he called himself Old Mike. And So I had texted him or sent him a message last night that my husband and I had adopted 2 children in our lifetime. And so now here I am at 73 with a 17-year-old. And I know some of you think, well, a lot of people end up raising their grandchildren. So I guess you could kind of compare it to that. And a lot of people have asked me if my daughter is my son's child, because that would be about right, you know, if he had had a child and we had ended up raising it, but that's not the case. But let's go back to when I was 55 is whenever I retired from the school system. And after that, you know, everybody is looking forward to retirement excitement, because this is what we live for, right? Our golden years to just get to do whatever we want to. But do we know what we want to do? That is the question. We think it's all going to be a bed of roses, that we're going to have just a great time every day. But that's not the facts. That's not reality. So when I first retired when I was 55, that summer I stayed pretty entertained because, you know, it was warm out. I could get out and fool around, go on little trips with my friends. And in the fall, I was pretty good, thinking, hey guys, y'all are going back to school and I'm sleeping in and just doing what I want to do. Well, see, I have worked all my life, never been home, well, as a school teacher, I was home during the summers, but that was different. I always had a child at that time whenever I was off. So I did pretty good all that fall and December. And in January, I don't know, I had this heavy burden, which I've told you about these heavy burdens sometimes I've had, that I needed to do something, but I didn't know what it was. Remember I talked about when I had that burden whenever I felt like the Lord wanted me to sing. Well, this was another one of those heavy burdens, but I didn't know what it was. And I've always been the type, I guess more now I'm kind of a motherly type, but in my younger years, it seems like I didn't really have that motherly love, you know. If I saw you sitting here with a new baby, I wouldn't say, oh, I've got to hold that baby. Can I hold it? Can I keep it for you for a little while? Oh, can I do this? I didn't do that. I didn't have that motherly feeling that so many people do. I love little babies and I love little kids, but they kind of got on my nerves sometimes. And I just wasn't, you know, we had adopted our son. I'd been through all that, and at this time he was in his late 20s, he was in his late 20s. So I had heard about this home that is probably about 30 minutes from where I live that keeps babies while their mothers are in prison. So the mother is in prison, she has the baby. This home has workers that are there at the hospital to pick up the baby, bring it straight to that home. The mother goes back to jail and serves out her time. Meanwhile, this home takes care of the babies. And then when the mother gets out of prison, she can just drive up there one night and say, hey, I'm here to pick up so-and-so. And they just pack her up and she goes on her way. So this is what happened to my daughter, my girl. I'm going to call her my girl. Her mother was in prison, and she went to this home and stayed from birth, from the time she was released from the hospital. Well, I don't know how I had heard about this place, but I had. And so I called to see if I could volunteer just like a day a week, just to give me something to get out of the house. This is so unlike me. This is why I'm saying that the Lord works miracles in our lives, because this is so unlike anything I would do. So I had to fill out an application. You had to go talk to them, and yes, they would be glad for me to come and volunteer one day a week. And one of the things is this home is very religious. It's run by there's a lot of Amish and Mennonites in this area, and they work there a lot. You had to wear a dress or a skirt. You couldn't wear pants to work there. So I had I had plenty of dresses, but I had a denim skirt, and I wore that every week whenever I went up there. Just if there was ever any pictures, I had that denim skirt on. So the first day I went up there, of course, I was nervous because I hadn't fed a little baby since my son had been a baby. There were 27 babies at this home the first day I went. Now, remember, all these babies' moms are in prison. And there was some Amish people, they're Mennonites that worked there, and then there were some just like me, just that lived out in the community. And they were very friendly to me. And then there was, besides the 27, there was like 4 or 5 kids that were, walking and between maybe a year old to maybe 2 to 3 years old. There was like 4 or 5 of them, and they were in a different little group because the smaller babies were kept in a certain area and the older ones were kept in another area. So I helped with just the newborn babies. I fed them. I changed their diapers. I did anything. I burped them. I just rocked them in a rocking chair because, the workers are good to them, but they don't have time when you got 27 babies and maybe 5 workers to sit and just, play with the baby. But I could do that. And I can't tell you how good that felt to just hug those little babies up. And some of them were just newborn. The majority of them were not even like setting up. So I continued to go every Wednesday and spent the day. And then one day somebody said, why don't you help with these older ones that were like 7 months old to a year and a half, 2 years. There's like 4 or 5 of them. And one of those was my girl and another little girl and 2 boys. The 2 boys were a little bit older. I said, I really like these little babies, dealing with these little babies. But I did. So I started helping with them. And I had this bond. I can't even think how to say it. My girl and me developed a bond that you would not believe. And I got to the point, now she was 7 months old when I met her. I don't think she was hardly walking whenever I met her. And they were clean. These kids were clean. But with so many of them, they would stay snotty-nosed and stuff a lot. And I can remember just the green snot in her nose, and it did not bother me in the least. I would clean her nose. I would change her diaper. I fed her. I did anything. And every Wednesday, whenever I walked in that door, those older kids, like she was 7 months old. There was another little girl that they were both born on the same day. And then the 2 little boys, they were probably about 2 or 2.5. They were thrilled to see me because they knew I was going to get down in the floor with them and play and sing to them. And then it got to the point where every week I would bring a bag of goodies like popsicles, stuff that they didn't have very often, ice cream, maybe just, a little sweet of some kind. And I would come in, they would see me with like $2 or $3 store bags, and I would sit down in the floor and they would just go through them, to see what all I'd brought. And the workers would say, oh, you don't need to be letting them do that. They were pretty strict with them. And I said, well, it won't hurt anything. They're just enjoying that. And we'd put them in the high chairs, and I've got pictures of them eating like those chocolate with vanilla, I can't think what they're called, popsicles on the ice cream on a stick with the vanilla and the chocolate over them, and they'd have that chocolate all over their face, and it would just it would just bless your heart to see them so happy. And they had a little wagon built where there was a little frame up around it where they couldn't fall out of the wagon, and we could put 4 or 5 in there and ride them around, pull them around on the wagon. And so when the weather was nice, we would take them out and pull them up and down the road there. It was out in the country. And just, I'm telling you, I was just blessed every week and sad whenever I would leave every Wednesday. And it got to the point, now this was in February when I started going, then I started going like 2 days a week sometimes. If I could, I would go 2 days a week just to be with her and the others too, but especially her. If you could have just seen her whenever she would see me coming in, because we just had this like a mother-daughter bond. But I still, I wasn't looking to the future. I did not think, what's going to happen? What's going to happen in the future? I was enjoying the day. And I'm thankful that I was doing that, because I would have been miserable otherwise. One little thing that they did to the kids, it would just kill me. When they turned a year old, when she turned a year old, I was there for her birthday. Brought her a little cake. Her and the other little girl that shared a birthday, I brought them a little doll and had it like in a little tote bag. Well, she liked the tote bag better than she did the doll, because they never got anything, even though the people took good care of them, they didn't have just a normal home life like most of us have had. Had a little birthday party, and we had ice cream and birthday cake. I've got pictures of her with that smeared all over her face. But the thing about it is, when they turn a year old, up until that time, they can take a pacifier. The day they turn 1, they take that pacifier away from them. And I felt so sorry for them, because whenever they would take them for a nap and put them in their little bed, give them their pacifier, and they'd just go right to sleep. Well, no pacifier, you know what that means, don't you? And they would cry, and it would just break my heart to listen to that. Of course, I'm so soft-hearted, though. But because of that, she started sucking her little thumb. And she sucked her thumb probably till she was in school, 7 or 8 years old. She didn't suck it at school, but she'd suck it at night. And her little teeth were kind of pulled out, from sucking her thumb so much. Now, let me tell you a little bit about her birth mother. Now, I'm not going to get this story done because it's already 18 minutes, and I'm not going to do a 40-something minute one. I will continue it, but I want to set the stage for how this worked out. Her mother, I met her. I didn't know her. She is from Kentucky. She told me that she had been on drugs since she was 11 years old, that her parents were alcoholics. I'm not sure if they were drug addicts or not, but she had one child when she was probably 15 or 16 years old, and her dad made her give the child up for adoption. And she didn't want to, but he made her. Then after that, I don't know how many years later, she had a little boy, and I don't know where he was. He wasn't, he had a different father than the little girl she had first. Then when she had my girl, she had been in prison and in jail quite a bit with drugs and prostitution. And, I never did hate her. I felt so sorry for her to think of what a life that she had lived. And I truly think she loved her children, but she had never been taught, how to take care of them or a life. She had never had her own home. I don't think she's ever had a car. I think she had her driver's license, but I don't think she had a car. And my girl is half Hispanic. The dad was Hispanic, and then the mom is white. And so she was beautiful. She had that black hair and big brown eyes and beautiful skin. And I made friends with her mom, and I wrote her when she was in prison. And even when I worked or volunteered, I would take pictures. And I had a little digital camera at that time. I don't think we even had a phone. If I had a phone, it was probably one of those big clunky ones we had kept in a car. And I would write her. I would take pictures with that digital camera, print them out, send them to her, and just, she had never had that much contact with her daughter until we got to knowing each other a little bit. Then, that was in February when I started going. I went all summer, sometimes 2 days. I mean, I would be driving up there. It was like 30 minutes from my house. And my heart would just be full of love. Just, I could not wait to see her, to hold her and to kiss her. And she would run to me and hug me. But again, I was never looking into the future. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Well, I'm going to tell one more little part and then I'm going to stop. In December, which was not hardly a year that I had met her, I had been wanting to go with another worker to the prison to visit the mom, because they are constantly, taking the kids to visit their moms in the prisons. And they never would let me go before. So finally, they agreed to let me go. And where her mom was in prison at this point was like 4 hours from where the home was. And so it was me, another worker, my girl, and a little boy. We were going to this prison for the day and to visit the moms. Long trip, a very long trip. Well, we got up there. This is the first time I'd met the mom face to face. And she was just so sad, just so sad. Of course, she was thrilled to see the baby because I'm not sure she had seen her since she was born, because now she was a little over a year old. And I'll never forget, she gave her a drink out of a Pepsi can, which I about died, because I thought, here this little baby, a little child drinking Pepsi out of a can, which, that's not something I would do. Not that I'm that strict with what they eat or drink, but I thought that was a little young for her to be doing that. And she didn't know her birth mother. She would look at her and kind of with fear, because her birth mother was kind of a boisterous woman, and she just, was very outspoken and kind of bossy acting and not kind or loving. But she would yank her up and, I'm going to hold you. And my girl would reach for me and cry. And her birth mother would say, "You're not going to sit with her. You see her all the time. You've come to see me." Well, I mean, it was just breaking my heart, to listen to her, the way she treated her. But then she dropped a bomb on me. And she said, "Oh," this is her birth mother talking, "my girl is going to move to another state." Now, this was in December, in a few weeks, with a friend of mine. And I said, "What?" And she said, "I have a friend that lives in another state. She's got a little boy that's Hispanic, half Hispanic, and she wants a little girl to go with the little boy that's half Hispanic. So I'm going to let my girl go live with them until I get out of prison." Well, I'll tell you what, you could have knocked me over with a feather, because I thought, I will never see her again. This could be the last day I see her again, because she was leaving in like a week or two. Well, my trip was ruined. I mean, I was fighting tears, holding back tears. And the birth mother was so excited, blah, 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 and they were laughing, everybody. So when we got back into the van to go back to the home, with a 4-hour trip in front of us, I was heartbroken. And I would look in the back seat at her in that car seat, and she would look at me, just laugh, just so happy. And I could not hardly wait to get back and get in my car to go home because I was holding back the tears. I couldn't hardly hold them back. And when we got back to the home, and it was pretty late. It was late in the afternoon. I think it was getting dark. And we took the babies back inside, and I was getting ready to leave, and she kept reaching for me and crying. Well, I couldn't hardly stand it because I had to get out of there. And I finally got in my car, and I bawled all the way home. My heart was broken. And you know what? I'm leaving that with you today to think about. And this week I will give you some more of that story. But it does have a happy ending. You guys have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.